«Бутик-Политик». Авторская программа Кирилла Задова, посвященная текущим мировым проблемам. «Бутик-Политик». Предвзятый обзор, субъективные комментарии и искренние оценки Кирилла Задова. С понедельника по четверг с 4 до 5. «Бутик-Политик». Сказал, как обрезал.
Приветствую вас, друзья, с вами Кирилл Задов, это «Бутик-Политик». Сегодня 21 ноября 2023, вторник. Сегодняшняя у нас программа специальная, и по специальному расписанию она пройдет. В гостях у нас сегодня будет Liz Berney, адвокат, директор департамента отдела специальных проектов и исследований самой старой произраильской организации США, ZOA, Зионистской Организации Америки. И, естественно, интервью будет по-английски, потому что, несмотря на то, что русский язык, скорее всего, был языком бабушек и дедушек Liz Berney, но это интервью возможно провести только по-английски, потому что тогда оно должно получиться тогда осмысленным, иначе это совсем может быть другая история. Поэтому, друзья, по-английски, но я думаю, что наши радиослушатели, в основном и зрители моего YouTube-канала, в том числе, смогут это спокойно понять. Но если нет, попросить кого-то помочь с переводом, я думаю, что это проблем больших не составит. В любом случае, Liz Berney уже была у нас в эфире один раз до этого, и, по-моему, разговор получился очень продуктивным и интересным. Напоминаю, что вы можете мне писать 347-460-0877. Это СМС-портал прямого эфира для всех, кто в прямом эфире меня смотрит и слушает. Ну, опять же, подписывайтесь на канал Кирилла Задова в YouTube. Это очень просто сделать. Зайти, набрать в Google Search или в YouTube Search Кирилл Задов, получить канал. Там надо ставить лайки, комментировать, и это поднимает программу в ленте для других пользователей YouTube. И опять же, там огромный достаточно архив, большой архив. Меньше, чем на SoundCloud, тем не менее он большой, за несколько лет. И можно, такая историческая хроника получится интересно, можно в архиве найти некоторые программы, которые, правда, даже сегодня мне интересно пересматривать, потому как мнения меняются, жизнь идет, и за последние 4 года мы стали свидетелями многих вещей, которые реально прям поменяли наше представление о мироздании.
«Бутик-Политик». Сказал, как обрезал.
Liz Berney, welcome on board. It's a pleasure to see you again here.
Pleasure to see you. Pleasure to see you again, Kirill.
I heard that you were trying today to attend trial for Arab gang that almost killed Joe Bergen.
Yes, I was there at the sentencing this morning, which was very interesting. I actually have my Justice for Joey hat right here, and a lot of us, almost 100 of us, showed up at the sentencing hearing. It was supposed to be for 3 of the attackers, the 3 worst attackers. It turned out that 2 of the attackers' sentencings were postponed. They've all pleaded guilty by now. I mean, it's obvious that they're guilty. There were videos of what happened. And the sentence could have been anywhere from 3.5 years to 15 years. The prosecutor asked for 6.5 years. And
Don't you think it's, I'm sorry for interrupting, don't you think it's a little light?
A little what?
Yeah, light. It's kind of, I don't know, it's the number of years for such a crime should be probably, a prosecution should ask for more, don't you think?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, but I mean, it could have been up to 15 years, and yeah, I think it's a horrible crime. The person who was Mahmoud Musa, who was sentenced today, was stomping on Joey Borgen's face, kept kicking him when he was on the ground. I mean, this was, I don't know, for those of people in the audience who don't know what happened, Joey was wearing a kippah and just walking by, and all of a sudden he was surrounded by a gang of about 6 Arab attackers who pummeled him to the ground, who doused him up close, including his face, blinded him with pepper spray, kicking him, hitting him with weapons, hitting him with a crutch. And this was premeditated. Before that, they went through the streets. This was all happened in Midtown Manhattan. Before that, they went through the streets on the back standing up in a pickup truck at the back of the pickup truck and throwing firecrackers into a crowd, and they injured a woman there. I mean, this was, really a very, very heinous crime. One of the attackers initially was only going to get 6 months, and we and others just made a huge uproar about that. He eventually got an 18-month sentence, and the three worst attackers, as I said, were up today. The judge actually gave more than the prosecutor asked for. She gave him 7 years, and she went over all the factors. Why he needs that kind of why he should have that kind of sentence. Interestingly, while he was in prison awaiting sentencing, he attacked a woman guard and attacked her breasts and tried to fondle her breasts and sexual assault. And I think when that came out, there was just a gasp that this guy is after doing something so heinous and knowing that he's going to be sentenced for it, he still goes ahead and does something like this. And Joey, in the beginning of, towards the beginning of this, he gave what's called a victim statement. And he talked about how this is having a lifetime impact on him. Every day he's in pain. He's had surgery on his wrist. When he just tries to pick up his dog, his wrist hurts. His wrist is constantly hurting him. He's probably going to need another surgery on that. He was hospitalized. I don't know if many of your readers may have seen the terrible shape he was in just after the attack. Incidentally, the attack ended when the New York City police stopped it and rescued him. It's not as if the attackers decided to walk away at some point.
So it was an attempted murder. They would kill him.
Yeah, they wanted, absolutely.
So why then, I'm sorry, but why then persecution is not an attempting murder?
I think, I agree with you. Yeah, and especially with everything and all the anti-Semitism that's going on now, you have to throw the book at people who are attacking people just because they're Jewish, or just because they're any other, but Jews have been we're bearing the biggest brunt of this. You have to throw the book at people for these hate crimes and this attempted murder. And interestingly, at the end, we really packed the courtroom. We had, as I said, almost 100 people there. We had heard that a lot of Arabs were to come out, but apparently they didn't. But they were in sort of two back rows, and there was one guy who had the keffiyeh on, and after they heard the sentence, he got up and saying, "Oh, we love you, brother. We're proud of you. We're proud of you for attacking a Jew." That's not that's not the lesson that we want. No, but I think I guess the feeling is that 7 years is going to teach this guy something. We hope.
It's too much. It's too little. It's too little, too late. And now in 7 years he's going to be out, and he's going to be a hero on the street. Sentence should be 15 years. Yeah. In my opinion, I don't know.
I agree. I agree. The more, the better. You want to have. This is just so heinous. What's going on?
System is not ready. The system is not ready. That's, I think, the verdict. The system is not good. Listen, I understand that it's horrible, everything that you just told me. I didn't follow that story, because I'm concentrated more on international issues in this show, and I'm trying, when I hear anti-Semitism, I'm trying not to think, because I know that the sickness is not curable. It's not curable in this country. I think what we have to do, we have to get weapons, we have to protect ourselves, we have to gather form militia, because it's not possible for government to protect. That's, I think, our own. It's our own, I think, business. How we're going to protect ourselves. Police is helping. I see police officers. I'm sorry. I see police officers over schools, over synagogues, over events a lot now since October 7. That I see, and absolutely. I'm grateful. I'm grateful to police and YPD, because they do what they can, and they do help a lot. But the question is, the more important now, I think, for us to discuss is our current situation in which we are in right now since October 7. That's
right. I want to mention. Yeah. I'd like to mention one other thing about this, which is that he belonged to a group called WOL, Within Our Lifetime, which is an Arab-Palestinian anti-Israel group in the United States, and one of their mottos is globalize the intifada. And as you know, the Intifada is a call for murdering Jews. The first, you had several Intifadas in Israel in which a total of thousands of Jews, probably 10,000 Jews, were murdered or maimed. And so they're calling for globalizing this, meaning attacking Jews everywhere.
So that's a matter of FBI. So why FBI is not on them?
Yeah, and this guy belonged to that organization and was involved with that organization.
I see. That's sad. Overall, Liz, since October the 7th, if you would give a number, from 1 to 10, how would you describe behavior of our United States administration towards Israel and toward the conflict? In your opinion, how it looks like?
Initially, Biden said the right things, and most of the right things, but the actions have been a lot of the actions have been a problem. There's been support militarily, but there have been a lot. I don't know that I can give it a number, but there have been a lot of things that are really bad. On the same day that you had this huge rally, last Tuesday, in which 300,000 people, Jews and friends of the Jewish people, showed up in Washington to support Israel. That very same day, Biden released $10 billion of money to Iran, which is the major sponsor of this, and behind Hezbollah, behind the Houthis, which are sending rockets at Israel, and behind, the Hezbollah, and behind the Iraqi militias, which are also sending rockets over, and also hitting our U.S. troops. This is inconceivable. And it did it on the exact same day. Also, on the exact same day, you had a problem with the Democrats in Congress. Schumer got up at the rally and said that he's going to make sure that Israel gets the aid it needs. And that day, twice, he and every single Democrat voted to block the aid to the standalone bill to give Israel $14 billion that it needs right now. That bill was passed by the House back in November 2nd, and the Senate's been blocking it because they want to tie it to other things that they want.
It's political. It's a game. It's not about Israel. It's about overall game between Republicans and Democrats. It's partisanship, and it's Ukraine money also in this. So it's a very big. Right. It's not anti-Israeli thing. I would think about that pressure that constantly Department of State, which are subordinates of President of the United States, right. Put Bibi on the fire constantly, calling him constantly, speaking to him, and trying to organize ceasefires every day for 4 hours, this and that.
Right.
But and also they didn't veto the resolution of United Nations Security Council that talks about those ceasefires as a mandatory thing.
Right. Right. Yeah. I want to go quickly through another couple of things that he's doing, and then talk a little more at length about the UN Security Council resolution, which is a real problem. First of all, Biden, since the outset, has been calling for the Palestine at the end of the day, after Hamas is hopefully wiped out, or to whatever degree it's wiped out, he wants to bring in the Palestinian Authority, and that is replacing and also still calling for a Palestinian state, which is outrageous. This is replacing one terror regime with another terror regime. The Palestinian Authority pays terrorists to murder Jews. 30 people from there, 30 Jews were killed by attacks from there in the last 18 months, or more than that. This is outrageous, and this was, from the beginning he kept talking about this. Also had a press conference last week, 2 days after the big Washington rally, also in a Washington Post op-ed this past weekend. He was talking about all this again. He's also restricting he also wants to restrict Israel's rights to assure that Gaza is no longer a terror base. And he's saying, oh, well, Israel, we can't reduce any of the territory of Gaza. Israel shouldn't reduce that. Well, we may very well need to have a demilitarized zone. And he's saying, oh, there should be no Israel occupation. Well, something in 2005, when Israel evacuated from Gaza and left Gaza, everybody was saying, well, if it doesn't work, if they turn it into a terror base, Israel can go back in. Well, now they're not saying that. They go, well, Israel should just wipe out Hamas, and then, but almost everybody is educated to be Hamas. I don't know if you saw the Carolyn Glick article, which laid out all the recent polls, which showed that 75% of Palestinians, both in the West Bank and in Gaza, support what happened on October 7th.
Sure,
Hamas.
but they support Hamas.
12% don't have any opinion. And you also have to remember that on October 7th, it wasn't just Hamas that was torturing and killing and raping and gouging out eyes of innocent Jews and burning babies. It was also thousands of Palestinian civilians, including children as young as 10 years old, were participating in this. This is you have the whole population that's a problem. So saying we're going to have a Palestinian state or we're going to have a Palestinian authority is just replacing one terror regime with another. It's not helpful. It's very counterproductive. Another thing that happened was that they're still supporting UNRWA, the UN Relief and Works Agency. On November 17th, it was also last week, the principal deputy national security advisor, John Feiner, called up the head of UNRWA and assured him that the Biden administration remains committed to supporting UNRWA's work. That's outrageous. UNRWA has been hiding the weapons for Hamas in its schools, in its facilities for years. Their UNRWA schools are teaching the Palestinian children to become martyrs. I mean, every single subject is pervaded by this. Even the math problems are, if you have 10 martyrs and, 2 of them were killed, how many martyrs do you have left? It's beyond belief that the United States is still, that the Biden administration still wants to support UNRWA. And by the way, Trump cut off all of the funds to UNRWA that Obama was sending. He stopped funding UNRWA because of this, because of that all they do is incite more terror. And when Biden came into office, he resumed sending funding to UNRWA. I mean, between the other Palestinians and projects and UNRWA, he sent over $1.5 billion to them. And don't you think that, of course, that's going to help them, with their terror operations?
One second now. I'm sorry, I have to intervene in this particular point, right, and others also. Let's start with Mahmoud Abbas, who's paying money to families of murderers of Jews. We have to understand the paradigm in which Mahmoud Abbas exists. It's enough for vast majority of Palestinians calling him a puppet show, calling him Israeli puppet, and if he's not even paying money to, he gotta give something. He cannot just pretend everything is fine because, as you properly noticed, Hamas support in Yehuda v'Shamron amongst Arabs are huge. If you come to Hebron, you'll see green flags. So he got to exist somehow. And I know the position Caroline Glick holds. I spoke to her, interviewed her once, read her book. She said that Palestinian Authority should be just liquidated, and all those 25,000-30,000 former Tanzim fighters now Palestinian police force should be demilitarized, weapons should be confiscated, and that's it. And Israel should annex the territory. That's understood. But as long as nation doesn't want to annex Yehuda v'Shamron, it's not going to work. And somebody got to do police work there. And that is something else. And Abbas, if we need Palestinian Authority to delegate to them certain part of our Israeli work, then he got to do what he got to do to survive. He understands the real picture. We know writings, text of that conversation, last conversation he had with Bush in 2007 or 2008, and in that Virginia place, they have talks, negotiations, and he said that different thing he said, and that's all in protocol. They all like in writing, but they were not published. That he understands real picture of what's going on. So, and he's not new on this. And for us, probably it serves our interest too, at least short term, to keep him in position of Rais, of President of Palestinian Authority. So that claim. No, you disagree?
Kirill, I disagree. Abbas is constantly inciting against Israel.
What else can he do?
He's constantly inciting. They have these same problems with the education system there, teaching terror.
Right.
You have the summer camps teaching terror.
Yes, true.
You have the sports teams teaching terror. You have the media. You have specials. Celebrating like Dalal Maghrabi, who carried out the Coastal Road massacre, and the other terrorists are vaunted as heroes when somebody kills Jews. Not only do they get money for life, or their family does. They also, in huge amounts of money, multiple of what, several, like I think 4 times of what the average salary is there. But they also have their picture. They're celebrated as a hero. They have posters all over for them.
That's right. You're absolutely right. So Caroline Glick is right. We should cancel it.
Before we had the Palestinian Authority in 1995, 1993, when you started
Oslo. It's Oslo,
when you
right?
Had the Oslo Accords. You had a lot less terrorism. The terrorism went up 4 times as soon as the Palestinian Authority went in, and you've had you didn't have suicide bombers before they went in. It was a very different story.
Because you gave in. You gave in.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
This is the start.
Anyway,
right.
Do you want me to get to the UN Security Council?
Yes, sure. But also, later probably we'll talk. Maybe next time we'll talk about what's the solution for that Palestinian Authority thing. Because this is a serious question. Somebody got to govern them. If we don't want to annex, if nation is not ready, somebody got to do it. And we both understand that there cannot be any Palestinian state in Yehuda v'Shamron. It's not possible. It's not possible.
I think at a minimum you need a demilitarized zone, like you have, up in Syria, where you have, an area, a certain amount of area that's not, where nobody lives there.
But 2 million people live in Gaza, Liz. 2 million people. What you gonna do with them?
You have to, either a lot of them have moved south already, or they should realize the truth is they should be resettled. And one of the things that UNRWA does is every other UN, the other UN agencies that deal with refugees, the goal is resettlement. The goal with the Palestinians is not resettlement; it's just to keep them there, as a force to try to destroy Israel. And that is really that's unacceptable. We have to have agencies that want to resettle them. You have to have Arab governments that take them in. A lot of them could be in Sinai easily.
But how can we do it?
That would be the ideal. But at a minimum, you have to have overall military control by Israel. And I believe also at least some demilitarized zone, so that northern Gaza is not, they're not able to use Beit Hanun and all these areas in northern Gaza to so easily send rockets into Israel.
That's obvious. I agree completely. We should control Gaza militarily forever. That's not possible since October the 7th to talk to Hamas, to delegate our protection to any structure and to think that our international force is not possible. Now we have to control it. We know that the question is, can we? It's 2 million people, and that's a different question. Now,
it's probably less than that. I understand that something like 200,000 Gazans left, recently, even before October 7th. So it may be down to 1.5, and it's. A lot of them would prefer to leave.
If they can.
Yeah, if they can.
Nobody wants them.
A lot of the Arab countries should be taking them in.
They don't want them. We know this. We know this.
I know, but if it's, a lot of them are originally from Egypt. If you look at the names, like it's Al-Masri. What does that mean? It means from Egypt.
Right.
A lot of them
Al-Masri is from Egypt.
A lot of the people who are in Gaza originally came from Egypt. But anyway, okay, about the UN
resolution. That's important. Right.
Yeah, the UN Security Council resolution. That's another issue that I'm, with the Biden administration. And this was just one day after the big march for Israel. The Biden administration enabled the passage of a UN Security Council resolution. The number is 2712 by abstaining. And abstaining, because the United States, as you know, has a veto, so they can stop any resolution they want to. And when they abstain, the resolution ends up, being, going forward. So an abstention really has the same effect as voting for something. At the end of the Obama administration, that's how Obama got this terrible. He actually orchestrated this really horrible anti-Israel resolution that says that even the Kotel, the Western Wall, and the Temple Mount, and Jerusalem, they're all occupied Arab land, and it promoted BDS, and it was a hugely problematic resolution. And at the end of the Obama administration, in 2016, he abstained, which was the same thing as voting for the resolution, and he had orchestrated it. So. Okay, and this resolution calls for days-long, urgent and extended humanitarian pauses and corridors throughout the Gaza Strip, not just in the north, not just where Israel is trying to get rid of the Hamas terrorists and the Hamas terrorist, launch pads there, but throughout the entire Strip. And days long, and that's the same thing as calling. That's really essentially the same thing as calling for ceasefires to enable Hamas to regroup and rearm and reattack Israelis. It also called for continuous, unhindered access for so-called United Nations humanitarian agencies, which of course means UNRWA. The other thing I didn't mention about UNRWA yet is also UNRWA is controlled by Hamas in Gaza. Most of the UNRWA employees are Hamas operatives. Okay, and so it's pervaded by Hamas operatives. The CIS Hamas has this terrible education that teaches martyrdom and attacking Jews. It hides the weapons, and so they're calling for them to have continuous unhindered access. And also it called for unhindered provision of what are dual-use items, such as electricity and fuel. And as you know, regarding what happened in Shifra Hospital, where Israel actually brought in fuel for the hospital, and Hamas was taking it and wouldn't allow it to go to the hospital needs. Hamas simply takes these items and uses it for attacking Israel and running its terror tunnels. I know you wanted to speak a little bit about international law. Yeah,
we're going to do it after commercial break, Liz. I'm sorry, we have to interrupt ourselves for now and come back like in a couple of minutes and we'll continue. I also have some questions about that resolution also. So we'll continue right after those commercials.
Бутик-политик. Сказал, как обрезал.
Добро пожаловать в Бутик-политик, часть 2. С нами Liz Berney, Director of Special Project and Research Department of ZOA, Zionist Organization of America, the oldest pro-Israeli organization in the United States. Liz, welcome back again. Thank you very much for this conversation.
Thank you, Kirill.
Considering that United Nations Security Council resolution, last one about ceasefires, is it little condition on connected to the hostages situation? What I got from it that if Hamas is responsible to get hostages go first, and then they have to do the stuff they mentioned.
No, the resolution did not say that. It called for the release of the hostages, which was the one positive aspect of it. However, there's no, Hamas is, of course, doesn't listen to UN resolutions. And it did not connect it. It didn't say the hostages have to be released first before you have these ceasefires. So, and you're right. That's a minimum. What it should have done is to connect any call for a ceasefire to first, having the immediate release of every hostage.
But it's not happening. But it does let Bibi a little bit of room to, say, listen, they don't do whatever Security Council resolutions demands of them. How can we proceed without getting something in return first? That's logical.
There's no teeth to this resolution on either side, frankly. I think, Israel's ambassador, Gilad Erdan, said that. He said the resolution's disconnected from reality and it's meaningless. And it says, he said, regardless of what the council decides, Israel will continue acting in accordance with international law, while Hamas terrorists will not even read the resolution at all, let alone.
They don't care about international law at all. That's absolutely.
They don't care. That's not
even a question. Listen,
right.
I wanted to talk about international law a little. According to, I know there's no set up in stone numbers, but what I've learned in my school, I took international law, I had to, it was one of the core subjects, and they taught me that if you want to kill militant, then collateral damage can be one civilian for one militant, a top. 50-50 is a top number. Is it true?
No, that's not true at all. Okay, what you have to do is you have to weigh your anticipated military advantage against the expected civilian harm, and this is a prospective assessment. So, if you're wrong, that doesn't matter. What matters is, what you reasonably believed when you make that assessment. I think, I was actually thinking, writing something about this. Hitler, 75 million people died as a result of Hitler. If you could have taken out Hitler, with a bomb, how many civilians would be an acceptable number who might have, died while you were, dropping that bomb on Hitler? I mean, I'm sure you won't say that you couldn't drop it if there was more than one civilian. The military advantage would have been huge. And Israel is going after...
That's a good argument. Yeah, it's nice. It's nice.
Yeah, Israel's going after the major Hamas terrorists, and they have lawyers embedded there, and a lot of times they'll call off something because they feel that there are too more, to call off an operation because they feel that there are too many civilians in the area, even though Hamas is the one that's putting the civilians in the area and in the way of harm, which is a war crime. That's a violation of international law.
Absolutely.
But so Hamas makes it very difficult for anybody to, Hamas's violations of international law make it very difficult, but Israel, under these difficult circumstances, still is making these assessments, and it's comparing, that's called the concept of proportionality.
Right.
And again, it's not one by one, it's military advantage versus expected civilian harm. And when you're taking out a major Hamas leader, and they've taken out several of the major Hamas leaders, the military advantage of that, would outweigh, certainly would outweigh one civilian, who's unfortunately in the way. And a lot of these figures also, they're so misleading. The figures, first of all, Biden and John Kirby from the administration, both admitted, and they both publicly said that you can't rely on this so-called Gaza Ministry of Health, which is Hamas.
It's Hamas, right?
For the numbers, the prime example was that hospital. They said the hospital was bombed and 500. Immediately they said 500 people were killed, and of course it was a total lie. First of all, they blamed Israel. They said Israel bombed the hospital, but in fact it was a Palestinian Islamic Jihad rocket, and it landed in the parking lot. And it killed a bunch of cars, not a bunch of people. this is, and this is typical. I mean, this happened, last year in 2022 when you had the PIJ rockets falling on Israel, and Israel did an analysis afterwards, and they found out that 12 out of 15 of the children who were killed were all killed by a Palestinian Islamic Jihad rocket.
Right.
There have been other analyses after other, some of the other wars, in Gaza, where a third or more of the civilian casualties were actually from the PIJ or the Hamas rockets that fell short. And they're including that. So they're including that, and they don't differentiate, between civilians and, this Gaza Ministry of Health. They don't differentiate between the civilians who were killed and actual terrorists who were killed. So there's such unreliable numbers.
Right. That's understood. Liz, thank you very much for that. I would like to see you in the show in the foreseeable future, when I hope already war will be over. But if not,
I
think
so.
at least I think I pray for by Hanukkah already should be over. I hope we're gonna win that soon. It's not a lot of time left.
Yes, I hope and pray also that it'll be over, and we'll have that would be a great Hanukkah gift to everyone.
Thank you very much for that conversation. I hope to see you soon again back on air.
Thank you, Kirill. Thank you. It's always great to see you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Бутик Политик. Сказал, как обрезал.